An orange home improvement bucket sits beside the garbage cans, lid snapped tight, looking like it was left there by accident. But inside that plain bucket is the part of the fly problem most people never build for, a trap that keeps working when you are not watching it. Noon heat, evening trash runs, overnight when the porch light is on and the bins are still warm. Because flies are not only the ones buzzing around your kitchen window, they are outside first. They gather where garbage leaks, where food scraps rot, where rainwater collects in a dirty lid, where one missed bag turns into a feeding station. Swat one fly indoors and you feel like you did something, but outside, the next wave may already be hatching near the cans, the drain, or the compost pile. That is why the bucket matters. It is not a decoration, it is the final piece of a system. The question is simple: can one ordinary bucket become the final piece of a system that kills the flies you see now and stops the next generation before it reaches your door? But before that bucket can do its job, the first flies that have to die are not outside at all. That is the part I learned the hard way doing fly control professionally, and it is the same order I use at my own home. Not because it is fancy, because it works. Most people start with the product they can see: a can of spray on the counter, a blue light zapper by the door, a sticky ribbon over the trash can, and each one can kill flies. But none of them is the whole answer. A spray may knock down the adults in the kitchen, but it does not seal the gap under the back door. A zapper may catch what flies near the light, but it does nothing to the garbage bin that keeps attracting more. A trap may pull flies into one spot, but if the inside is already active, you are still fighting in two places at once, so the game plan has to move in the right order. First, kill what is already inside, because those are the flies landing on food, windows, and counters right now. Then treat the direct entry points, where they are squeezing in around doors, screens, vents, and garage gaps. After that, reduce the pressure outside, especially around trash, drains, pet waste, and damp organic mess. Only then does the bucket become powerful, because the bucket is not supposed to do every job. It is supposed to pull flies away from the house after the house is no longer inviting them in. That is the difference between chasing pests and taking back control with the system. And the first tool in the system looks so unimpressive that most people would throw it away. A laminated square. That is the first indoor kill point. Not a trap with a motor, not a fogger, not something hanging in the middle of the room. Just a small paper square that has been laminated, labeled, and treated on one side. The reason for laminating it is simple. The surface matters more than the material. You want something flat, smooth, easy to handle, and easy to remove. Cardboard can soak up moisture. Plain paper can curl. A laminated square stays clean enough to place, move, and throw away when the job is done. Then one side gets the bait. In this setup, I use PT Alpine Fly Bait. It is made to attract houseflies. They land on the treated surface, feed on the bait, and the active ingredient does the rest. That is the knockdown. Not because you sprayed the whole room, because you gave the flies a controlled place to make the last bad decision. And that control is the entire point. Before you handle it, put on gloves. Each station should be clearly labeled so nobody mistakes it for scrap paper or a coaster. Keep it away from children. Pets, dishes, cutting boards, counters where food is prepared, and anything hot. No windowsills above a stove, no spots beside a toaster, no shelf where a cat likes to climb. This is not decoration. It is a pesticide station. The mistake is thinking the bait has to chase the fly. It does not. Flies already have favorite resting places indoors. They pause on warm window frames. They sit on door trim. They collect near trash areas, light edges, and the corners where air movement slows down. If a bait station is placed near those natural landing zones, the fly does the work for you. Land, taste, die. That is why the population can drop fast inside a house. You are not waiting for every fly to blunder into a random trap. You are turning their own behavior against them in the exact places they already use. And once the adults inside start disappearing, the house changes. The buzzing gets quieter, the windows clear, the kitchen stops feeling like a battlefield. But a bait station only works if it is placed where a fly would actually choose to land. Start with the refrigerator, not on the handle, not where hands touch, near it. That appliance is one of the strongest odor centers in the house. Milk drips, fruit softens, leftovers breathe through tiny gaps nonporous in containers. To you, it is just the kitchen. To a fly, it is a map. So the first indoor zone is near food odor, but not on food surfaces. A station can go high on the side of a cabinet near the refrigerator, on an upper trim piece, or on a vertical surface where flies rest after circling the smell. High matters. Flies land above eye level more often than people notice, especially on edges that feel safe and still. The second zone is above doors. Every time a door opens, the house exhales and inhales. Warm air moves out, outdoor air moves in. If you have pets, kids, deliveries, or people stepping in and out all day, that doorway becomes a traffic lane. Flies do not need a wide invitation. One opening is enough. That is why the trim above a busy door can be better than a random wall across the room. A fly enters, lifts toward the light, pauses near the frame, and finds the station before it ever makes it deeper into the house. The third zone is the windowsill area. Not every sill is right. Skip anything over a sink, stove, toaster, or prep counter. But a dry window edge in a laundry room, mudroom, garage entry, or back hallway can be perfect. Flies move toward light, then stop on the frame when they cannot find a way out. Use double-sided tape or a small roll of tape on the back so the station sits flat and stays put. You are not trying to cover the room. You are choosing the places where food odor, light, and entry points overlap. Countertops are not the target. Sinks are not the target. Stove areas are not the target. The target is the fly's resting path. And if you do not have laminated squares ready, the same idea can still work directly on the right surfaces. But do not use regular paper. That is the trap a lot of people fall into. They hear, put the bait on a square, grab printer paper or a napkin, and think they made a station. They made a sponge. Paper is porous. Cardboard is porous. A paper towel is even worse. The liquid sinks in, spreads through the fibers, and pulls the bait away from the surface where a fly can feed on it. Instead of a clean, available spot, you get a stained patch that dries unevenly and loses power fast. The rule is simple. If the surface drinks water, do not use it. If the surface holds a bead, it is a better candidate. That is why laminated plastic works. So does smooth tape, a plastic lid, a strip of packing tape on a safe backing, or a glossy disposable surface that does not soak the bait in. The bait needs to sit on top because the fly feeds from the top, and in some places, you may not need a station at all. A tiny treated spot can go directly on certain non-porous surfaces if the product label allows it and the location makes sense. Think high edges on a door frame, the top lip of a window frame in a garage, the upper edge of a picture frame in a hallway, a smooth outside area on a garbage can lid or rim, away from anything people touch often. Not broad smears, not random dots everywhere. Small, controlled placements where flies already land. That detail matters because flies are edge creatures. They pause on corners, ledges, bright frames, and raised lips. They circle food odor, then rest nearby. They move toward window light, then settle on the border. They approach waste odor, then touch down on the rim before diving in. So you are not decorating the house with bait. You are placing it on the fly's pause button. Still, the label is the boss. Do not treat food contact surfaces. Do not treat counters, cutting boards, plates, utensils, pet bowls, or anywhere small hands can reach. Keep treated spots away from children and pets, and use only the surfaces the product allows. Get that part right, and the inside system becomes cleaner, smaller, and sharper. Now the house is protected from the inside, but the real pressure is building just outside the walls. Start where the flies are already gathering, not in the kitchen, outside. The garage door is one of the most overlooked fly entry points around a house. It opens wide. It stays open while you unload groceries, pull out tools, roll out bikes, or sort boxes. And once flies get inside the garage, they are one cracked interior door away from the laundry room, mudroom, hallway, or kitchen. That makes the outside frame of the garage a pressure point. If the product label allows outdoor use, this is where a controlled treatment can make sense. Not across the whole door, not where your hands grab. The target is the areas flies already use as landing zones. Upper corners, trim edges, shaded seams, and the frame near the top where they pause before slipping inside. Then look at the garbage cans. A trash can is not just a container. To a fly, it is a billboard. Food residue dries on the rim. Moisture collects under the lid. Odor leaks through the seams. Organic waste warms up in the sun. That combination pulls flies in, keeps them circling, and can create breeding pressure right beside the house. So the can area deserves attention before the flies ever reach your doors. Follow the label and focus on safe exterior landing spots around the can zone. Nearby non-food surfaces, the outside rim or lid areas if allowed, fence posts, wall edges, or the shaded structure behind the cans. You are not trying to soak the area. You are building a narrow kill zone where flies naturally stop. That is the difference between a quick spray and a system. A quick spray knocks down what is visible. A residual treatment, used correctly, leaves behind a protective layer that can keep working for weeks. In many cases, that means you are not starting over every afternoon when the sun hits the trash cans or the garage door rolls open again. Now the fight has moved from defense to offense. You are treating the places that create the pressure, not just the rooms where the pressure finally shows up. But spraying hot spots still does not answer the biggest question. How do you keep attracting flies away when you are not even home? That is where the bucket comes in. Not a fancy device, a bucket. Use a lidded bucket that matches the size of the problem. For a few annoying flies around a patio, a small bucket can work. For garbage cans, livestock areas, compost, or a yard that gets hit hard every summer, step up to a 5-gallon bucket with a tight lid. The lid matters. Without it, you have a smelly container that flies can enter from anywhere and leave from anywhere. With it, you can control the entrance. You are not just making a trap, you are making a door that only swings one way. The key piece is the green cone from a rescue-style fly trap bag. If you have ever seen one of those hanging disposable fly traps, the green plastic top is the part the flies crawl through. It looks simple, but it does the important work. Wide opening on one side, narrow exit on the other. To a fly, it feels like a tunnel leading toward odor. Once it drops through, the shape becomes confusing. The way back out is small, elevated, and hard to find. That cone is the engine of the bucket trap. Start by removing it from the bag. Keep the cone intact. You want the funnel shape, not a torn piece of plastic. Then take the bucket lid and mark the center. Use a 2.5-inch hole saw to cut one clean hole through the lid. Do not make several holes. Do not leave a ragged opening. One fitted opening keeps the trap controlled and forces the flies to use the cone instead of wandering in and out around it. Now insert the cone from the underside of the lid. The wide green rim should sit against the bottom of the lid. The narrow end should point down into the bucket. That direction is important. Flies approach from above, crawl through the wide entry, and drop into the dark container below. Then seal it. Run a bead of caulk around the cone where it meets the lid. The goal is not just to glue it in place. The seal closes gaps, keeps the cone from shifting, and makes sure the only real path into the bucket is through that one-way funnel. Let the caulk cure before using the trap. Once it is dry, snap the lid onto the bucket and look at what you have built. From the outside, it is plain. From a fly's point of view, it is a guided entrance into a chamber it cannot understand. That is why this works while you sleep. You are not swinging at flies in the air. You are setting up a system that keeps operating after the porch light goes off, after the garage closes, and after the trash cans sit quiet in the dark. The cone traps them, but the bait inside is what convinces them to crawl in. Inside the bucket, the bait has one job. It has to smell more interesting to a fly than your trash can, your dog run, your compost pile, or the tiny smear of food drying on the patio table. Start with the attractant pouch that comes in the fly trap kit. Do not cut it open. Drop the whole water-soluble pouch into the bottom of the bucket. That packet is made to dissolve. Once water hits it, the ingredients begin to spread through the liquid and release the odor flies are built to investigate. Then add the part that makes this bucket brutally effective. Crack in 3 or 4 eggs, shells and all. The shells do not hurt anything, and the eggs bring the kind of rotting organic smell houseflies are drawn to from a distance. It is not pleasant. It is not supposed to be. To you, it smells like something has gone wrong. To a fly, it smells like food, moisture, and a place to lay eggs. Now add water. You do not need to stir it. You do not need to mix it like a recipe. Just add enough water to activate the pouch and begin breaking everything down. Then close the lid. That closed lid is important because the smell should escape through the cone area, not from every open edge of the bucket. The odor becomes the invitation. The cone becomes the doorway. The liquid below becomes the end of the trip. But here is the part that decides whether this trap helps you or punishes you. Do not put it beside the front door. Do not put it on the patio table. Do not put it next to the back door, the grill, or the chair where people sit. A strong fly trap does not just catch flies, it pulls them. If you place it at the entrance to your home, you are training every fly in the area to come investigate the exact place you are trying to protect. Set it away from the house instead. Put it near the far side of the garbage area, behind a shed, along a fence line, or downwind from the spaces where people gather. The goal is simple. Make the bucket the most attractive thing in the yard, but not the thing sitting next to your doorway. That is the system working. You are not chasing flies after they arrive. You are giving them a stronger target somewhere else, then letting the trap remove them before they turn your home into their next stop. A few days later, the most disgusting part of the system becomes the strongest proof that it works. A few days later, go back to the garbage can area and look before you touch anything. That cloud of flies that used to lift off the lid, circle the handles, and drift toward the house should be thinner now. Maybe not gone, not instantly, but fewer flies are hanging in the air where they used to gather. That is the first sign. The second sign is inside the bucket. When you crack the lid, you will know immediately why this thing does not belong near a door. The smell is sharp, rotten, and heavy. Down in the liquid, there are dead flies floating on the surface. More are stuck along the wet walls, and if the bucket has been working for several days, you may see movement in the mess. Maggots. Disgusting, yes, but important, because this is where the trap stops being just a trap. A fly that enters the bucket does not only die there. If it laid eggs before it drowned, those eggs hatch inside the bucket. The larvae feed inside the bucket. They stay inside the bucket. They do not crawl through your trash area, pupate in a hidden wet spot, and emerge as the next wave of adults around your back door. That is the turn. The bucket is not just removing the flies you can see. It is capturing part of the life cycle you usually do not see. And that is the same lesson that shows up with fruit flies in a kitchen drain, houseflies around garbage, and every sudden infestation that feels like it came out of nowhere. Traps help. They reduce pressure. They buy you control. But the explosion stops when the breeding source is removed, sealed, dried out, cleaned up, or contained. That is why this system works from both directions. The house becomes harder to enter, the yard becomes less rewarding, and the bucket becomes the ugly place where flies go in, but the next generation does not come back out. That is the moment the ordinary bucket finally answers the question we started with. So yes, one ordinary bucket can be the final piece, not because it is magic, because it sits inside a system. First, use indoor bait stations where flies are already landing and keep them away from kids and pets. Second, treat the right surfaces directly, following the product label exactly. Third, hit the outdoor hotspots, trash cans, compost, animal areas, and the damp corners where flies keep returning. Then, place the bucket away from doors and windows, where it can pull pressure away from the house. That is the shutdown. You are not chasing one fly across a room. You are cutting off entry, food, resting spots, and breeding points at the same time. Empty and refresh the bucket as needed, because a trap that is full or dried out stops doing its job. Now tell me in the comments, where is your worst fly hotspot? Kitchen, garage, patio, trash cans, or animal area? Thanks for watching.